The Shabbat Blessing. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu, melech ha'olam, asher noten lanu et Yeshua Moshe Enu, or ha'olam. Blessed are you, Yahweh our God, King of the universe, who gave to us Yeshua our Mashiach, the light of the world. A Song for the Shabbat, Tehillim 92, 1-16. A song for the Shabbat. It is good to give thanks to Yahweh and to sing to your name, Most High, to make your mercies known in the morning and your faithfulness every night. Upon 10 strings and upon the harp, upon the resonating harp. For you, Yahweh, have made me rejoice in your deeds. I will overcome in the works of your hand. How great are your deeds, O Yahweh! Your thoughts are very deep. A brutish man does not know, nor does a fool understand this. The wicked sprout as the grass, and though all the deeds of the wicked flourish, the wicked deeds will be destroyed forever. And you, Yahweh, are from the heights forever. For behold your enemies, Yahweh, for behold your enemies will perish. All the deeds of the wicked shall be scattered, and you will raise up my strength as the rhino. I will be anointed with fresh oil. My eyes shall see my enemies, my ears shall hear wickedness rising against me. But righteousness shall flourish as a palm tree, as a cedar in Lebanon it grows. Planted in the house of Yahweh shall flourish in the courts of our God. In old age they still bear fruit. They will be satisfied and prosperous, as a declaration that Yahweh is upright, a rock with no injustice in him. Yahweh reigns, the earth will rejoice, the multitudes of the coast will be glad. Clouds of thick darkness surrounds him. Righteousness and judgment establishes his throne. Fire goes before him and consumes his enemies round about. His lightning illuminates the world. The earth saw it and trembled. The mountains melt like wax in the presence of Yahweh, in the presence of the Lord of the entire earth. The heavens declare his righteousness, and all the people see his glory. All the servants of idols who boast in nothingness are confounded. Bow down to him, all you little gods. Zion heard and was glad, and the daughters of Yehudah rejoiced because of your judgments, Yahweh. For you, Yahweh, are high above all the earth, exalted far above all little gods. They love Yahweh to the upright heart. The righteous rejoice in Yahweh and give thanks at the thought of his holiness. Praise to Yahweh from Tehillim 93, 1-5. Yahweh reigns. He is clothed in majesty. Yahweh is clothed with strength. He is prepared. The world is established and immovable. Your throne is established from eternity to eternity. The streams have lifted up, Yahweh. The streams have lifted up their voices. The streams lift up their waves. Yahweh is high and more mighty than the sounds of great waters, more mighty than breaking waves. Your testimony is exceedingly faithful. Holiness is fitting in your house forever and ever. Save me from my enemies, Tehillim 13, 1-6. To the chief musician, a psalm to David. How long will you forget me, Yahweh? Forever? How long will your face be hidden from me? How long will grief daily be the counsel of my soul? How long will my enemies rise up against me? Consider my afflictions, Yahweh, my God. Make my eyes to shine, lest I sleep with the dead. Lest my enemies say, I have prevailed over him, and my adversaries rejoice, for I am shaken. But in your mercy I trust. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing to Yahweh, for he has recompensed me. Forgive me, Tehillim 130, 1-8. A song of degrees. From the depths I have cried to you, Yahweh. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to my plea for mercy. If you, Yah, keep records of iniquities, who could survive it? But with you there is forgiveness, so that you will be held in awe. I wait for Yahweh, my soul waits, and in his words I have hope. The Lord keeps my soul like a watchman from morning to morning. Hope, Yisrael, in Yahweh, for with Yahweh there is mercy, and with him is great redemption. and he will ransom Yisrael from all their iniquities. Please turn to the east for the reciting of the Shema. Be'ivrit, Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Ve'ahavta et Yahweh Elohecha b'kol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha. Ve'hayu hadevarim ha'eleh asher anohi metzavcha hayom al levabacha. And in English, hear Yisrael, Yahweh our God, Yahweh is the only one. And you will love Yahweh your God in all your heart, and in all your soul, and in all your strength. And the words that I command you this day will be in your heart. Turning back, let us shed some love on our neighbors. Be'ivrit, lotikon velotitor et b'nei amecha ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ani Yahweh. And in English, you shall not avenge or hold a grudge against the children of your people, and you will love your close friend as yourself. I am Yahweh. The blessing, Be'ivrit. We'll try that again with the mic on. I really need somebody to start praying and somebody to help me. I need someone with technical skills. You don't have to be able to write code, but I need someone here every Saturday morning to set this stuff up so that it works. I have to reset everything to what it's already set to, and then it works. This is so far beyond stupid. I don't even know what to do. But I really need some help because I'm not going to stand up to this much longer, especially since I don't know how to sleep anymore. But we're going to start with 12. I think we may have already done 12, but I have no recollection of it whatsoever. I don't remember teaching not one word of it. So I want to start there because I do remember teaching 11. It can never hurt to do something twice. So let's go on to something that actually brings me joy, and that's the teaching. We're in Vayikra. It's also known as Leviticus chapter 4, verse 12. If we were to translate it very, very literally in English, it would say, and make come, which is, of course, and bring, all the young bull from outside to camp, to place pure, to pour it out, the ashes, and burn with he upon trees with fire, upon poured out the ashes, and burn. As odd as that may sound, and I'm hoping that sounds odd to you because it should, it's really not that hard to understand. We start off with Behotzi, or Behotzi, to say it a little more correctly. And remember, that's that one that said, and make come. So in English, we would just say, and bring. So a lot of ways to bring something. You can bring your game if you're a sports person. You can take someone by the hand and bring them from one place to another. And this is really what we're talking about here. But it's of going from one place to another. But this is you're making them go. So you grabbed them by the hand and you're pulling them. If you follow what I'm saying. Then it says "et" in Hebrew, which is just a pointer. It doesn't actually have a meaning. It
it's pointing to something. This next word is kol, which is all, like totality, everything. This is hapar, which is the young bull. The image of a young bull, oddly enough, comes from the idea of it pulling a cart. It's often used of a yearling, even once of one that was 7 years old. Metaphorically, it's used for a sacrifice, even when offered by the lips. That's strange, because if we tell someone they're offering up bull from their lips, we don't mean the same thing. Okay. Anyway, just thinking out loud here. All right, our next word is L, which is two. And this is that one that says it's properly a noun indicative of motion. Oh, what? Yeah, in English, our nouns don't have motion, right? But this is that I'm facing this way and now I'm turning towards you. That's literally what that means. Then it says mechutz, which is from outside, properly a wall, hence especially the outside of a house, whatever is they say without. If we say without, we're thinking I'm without resources, I'm without money. That's not what they mean by without when it's translated in older English Bibles. That means outside. One of those things that probably should be updated from the old Bibles. Then it says la mahane, which is not in the sense of to camp, as in we went there to camp, but it's to the camp. Let's put another word in there so it'll make sense in English. We're going to take it outside. And in this case, it'd make more sense if we said take it outside of the camp. The lamad is definitely used that way in the Bible, which now in modern Hebrew, they say shell. It's an oddity to me to hear people when they speak Hebrew to say that instead of adding the lamed, or I don't know. My thing is Bible Hebrew, and it's not necessary you don't need a new word for of. You just don't find that in the Bible at all. You'll never find shell in the Bible. At least not any that I've read, but I'm sure maybe the more modern ones are using it. I don't really know. I haven't ever looked at one of those. I'm talking in Hebrew. I'm talking in English, but I'm talking about the Hebrew Bibles. Anyway, I'm in a strange mood today, I suppose. So you take this thing outside the camp. You've got probably a rope around it, maybe a halter. I don't know. I've never seen one. Well, actually, I have seen someone put a halter on a bull before. So, but not likely what they would have done. Just would have wrapped it around the neck, and you're pulling on it, and it's going with you. Then it says L. That's to turn to something. Makom. So makom is the word for place. It's kind of the proper word. It's not the normal word, but certainly not in today's Hebrew. But it means place, to that place over there, that place right there. That it's of a station, like an outpost or something like that. You're just talking of that place. That place where you live. Those kind of usage. So now we have tahor, which is pure. It's something that's clear, the opposite of filthy. So the water is clear; it's not filthy. Unmixed metals, like pure gold. It's gold that hasn't been mixed with another metal to harden it up. Because if you don't do that with gold, it becomes very malleable. Is that the word I'm looking for? And it's heavy, true, but Like if you put a solid gold ring, a pure gold ring on your finger, it will be all bent up in an hour or two. I mean, the heat will just melt it, will not melt it, but make it all bendy. So anyway, pure gold, they say pure gold a lot, but that doesn't really mean what we think. And then it says El, which is two again. Shefech, to the place where this stuff is going to be poured out. Well, what stuff? Well, I haven't told you yet. Next word is Hadashen, the ashes. So you're going to take this thing to where the ashes are poured out. Now this right here is a little bit different than the sheep. Remember, we started off, we were talking about the sacrifice of the sheep and all the things that we did. Then we went to this cow, and everything was kind of exactly the same. And then now we're doing something that they didn't do with the sheep. They're taking it outside of the camp to the place where the ashes are poured out. Remember, there's ashes when they're having the barbecue inside the tent. There's that place where you put the ashes, and then inside the holy place, you even have a place that the ashes have to be cleared, and all of these things that are happening. This is a little different. We're taking this thing outside. This is where they ultimately everything winds up anyway, right? And then it says Vesaref, which is and burn. So you're going to cook it out there. It says Oto, which is literally that one has no meaning, that's pointing to something. And so you're saying, and it, this is all, so it will be upon etzim. Well, that's trees in plural. So they're probably not telling you to cut down a tree, several trees and pile them in a. It's probably logs, but remember, this is what do you call that? A primitive language. So one word is used a lot of different ways, where in our world, every different way has its own word. So it's a very different approach to things. They're talking about logs here. Then it says ba'esh. That's the word for fire. That's in or with the fire. All, which is on, the fire that is on. Shefech, that place that's poured out. Hadashen, the ashes. Yisaref, that's and burn and barbecue it. I don't know what else to tell you there. So my translation, and bring the entire bull outside the camp to a clean place where the ashes are poured out. That's not really a clean place. I mean, remember the word pure that I was talking about a while ago? So what they're saying is, to my mind, is that it's going to be a new spot every time. It's going to be in that same general area, but put it in a new spot where the ashes are poured out, and burn it on the logs with fire, and burn it on the ashes. So you put that fire on the logs, or the logs on the ashes, and cook it. Of the words outside the camp, Rashi pointed out that Yom Kippurim also included a sacrifice on the altar, which was to be taken outside the camp. Onkelos wrote atar, that's the same word twice, which literally means place. Remember, this is Aramaic, not Hebrew. Even though the Hebrew did not repeat itself. He did something similar with bait, or bait, which literally means area, or place, or house. Remember, it's a primitive language, so a lot of uses for this same word. Now, much was made of the deep spiritual meaning behind this, him saying these things twice. But in the end, he was only trying to bring clarity to the Aramaic translation. There was nothing deep about Onkelos. I'm just going to tell you now. Don't mean to break your heart, but there isn't. If he's anything but deep. When you're doing a terse translation, there's nothing deep there. And he did it on purpose. For whatever reason, he felt it was important. I don't know. It doesn't say. But it was not intended to be deep. All right, so verse 13. Very literally, it would say, and if all Edah Yisrael, so if all the congregation Israel, he err they, so they err, ERR, and be concealed word from eyes, the assembly, and do they one from all commandments, Yahweh, that not shall do, and guilty they. Okay, so there's an idiom or two here. Ve'im, so and if, kol adat, and if all the congregation, everybody that's within this group of people, because remember, there's a lot of adat, there's a lot of congregations among these Jews. You have at least one. Sorry, I'm starting to lose my throat. I'm starting to lose my voice again. Guess y'all should start praying about that too. They've bumped back the biopsy I need till July 14th because of all this stuff going on. Let's see. An appointed. Oh, we're talking about the Edah. So you have at least 70 elders, right? So every one of those elders are going to be the head of an Edah. And there's almost no doubt in my mind that that's going to break down even further. They're going to be more congregations within that. The 70 is like your federal government, and then you're going to have your state government, then you're going to have your local government. It really works that way, right? So there's a lot of congregations of Yisrael, and we call that Israel these days. In Israel, it's mostly called Israel, which doesn't exactly sound quite that slow and broken up, but I say it slow for you guys, and the fact that I've got that Texas draw now. Yishgu is our next word. Literally, it was he, err, they. So if they've erred, this congregation, not. I'm saying it this way because I want you to know this is not necessarily going to be every Jew on the planet. This is the group of Jews in this one particular small little group. If they have erred, they have wandered, they've gone astray, they've done something ultimately that's against God's law. That's to err, to go astray. Then Elam, and they didn't even realize it. They just, something in the teaching was wrong, or something in the application was incorrect, or these people were so not used to living according to God's law, slipping up was going to be easy. Everybody who came into this after the fact, like everyone in this group, we came to all of this knowledge after the fact. We weren't raised, covering our head every time we went to take a drink because we're saying a blessing over the drink. We're not used to praying after our food. It was easy to remember before, and then okay, well, we do this after now, and then you get up, you go, and 10 days later you realize, I never did pray after a single meal. That's a big one for people, especially from the Christian variety that are in the process of, or have at this point, converted to Judaism. So you can see how this can happen. This is a simple thing. It happens to everybody. No matter how intent you are on doing it right, it's going to happen. And people may not even notice it. I mean, think about how many times somebody says something incorrectly, but you know what they meant, and so you heard it right. All right, so it's concealed davar. The word of it is concealed from them. In other words, nobody noticed. This is an idiom. It's not like It was written down. Everybody could have, the big old sign on the wall said, "Thou shalt," and none of us did. That's not what they mean. It just is idiomatic. So it's concealed me'ene from their eyes, in a group plural type thing. Ha-kahal, which is the assembly, the congregation. Ve'asu, and so it's concealed from them, and they've done this. They've produced it. They've manufactured it. They've done the thing, whatever that thing is. Achat is the word for one, in plural. Doesn't it sound weird at one in plural? Yeah, America's supposed to be one people, right? So you get it, people's plural. Michol, from all, misvot, from all the commandments. Just anything, because that's all it's saying. There's a lot of commandments here, and this is any of the commandments of Yahweh, and it uses his proper name. And this is Asher Lo Te'asena, that if they've done something from out of all of those laws that they're not supposed to do. Pretty much, that's all it's saying. Boy, I got a lot of stuff for Asa. So our next word is ve'ashemu, and guilty they. And they've become guilty. I mean, so far, no one knows that they're guilty. They've all done this thing and they don't know it. Like, for instance, let's say you got on this path and your whole congregation is celebrating their first Pesach together, and decides to have beer with Pesach. And then a couple days later, they find out, oh, wait, beer has leaven in it. Who knew, right? Oh, just making one up here. But because we found out a few years ago that beer had leaven in it. We had no idea. Why would you know what's in beer? But that could be a thing, because among the Jews, we know that to commit a sin is not to offend somebody in the Pentecostal Holiness Church. It's not to offend somebody in the Baptist Church. It's not to offend somebody in any church. To commit a sin is to go against God's law. If he says to do it and you don't, that's a sin. If he says not to do it and you do, that's a sin. That's the sum total of what sin is and what it is not. So no matter how offended somebody is by alcohol, since the Bible does not forbid alcohol, in fact, it commands us to drink alcohol more than once. If you're not drinking alcohol, you're committing a sin. Of course, we do have a way around that, because we're commanded not to drink alcohol. We're commanded to drink wine. And since all grape juice starts off as wine and is pasteurized, which makes it grape juice, and there's no alcohol in it after this process, it's still wine. And so when we're commanded to drink wine, if you're an alcoholic, don't drink it. Drink the grape juice, just in case you're worried about those things. But anyway, I'll have to say it again. I say it often, but I think it's something that every Christian and every Jew needs to know. It comes from the New Testament, but listen, Jews, you'll like this. There was a rabbi, and he wrote this letter, and in this letter, his name was Yochanan, and in English he's known as John. So it's in 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. Pretty easy to remember. It'd be nice if there'd been a 2 in there, but that's the only one that's missing. But anyway, he said, anyone who commits a sin is also in violation of the Torah. Now, they say law in English on most of them. Some of them say Torah in them, but most of them say law, and it gets whitewashed that way because Christians don't know that the Torah is a law. That, they don't put the two together when they're reading the New Testament, because they think it's something different. But it says, so anyone who commits sin is in violation of the Torah. That's the first half of the sentence. The second half says, because sin is Torah, rebellion. It's the most concise explanation of what sin is and what it is not that I have ever read among any Jew anywhere. No one has ever put it in better terms. And this was a first century Jewish rabbi. That should not surprise us that he said it that way. He didn't say violation of something in the New Testament. He said violation of the Torah. So it doesn't matter how offended we are by something, whether it's drinking or smoking or gambling, those things are not a sin. You know how I know? Because the Torah does not declare these things to be a sin. Not once, not ever, not in any way, shape, or form. So it makes no difference how offensive we find it. It is not a sin. You know, I found out last night that in Portugal, in the late 1800s going on into the 1900s, the Jews had been expelled, and they, back in 14, is it 42 or 92, when Columbus sailed the ocean. See, I got that all mixed up in my head now. But anyway, the night that Columbus sailed the ocean blue, he predominantly left with Jews because that was the night the Jews were expelled from Spain. But that was also the time when the people in Portugal were expelled as well. And so when you get to the late 1800s and the early 1900s, they've been allowed back in. Of course, they find out, that some of the Jews never left. They just were in hiding. And so they were called crypto Jews. But they still had their law of the land, right? And circumcision was considered in that place, in that time, a lewd act. And a very famous person from that place, he was convicted of a lewd act. Can you imagine circumcision? I'm sorry, that one I had no idea that anyone had ever done that. All the stuff I've ever read and studied, I've never heard that before. So, anyways, they're guilty. They've done something that either the Torah, in this case, the Torah said not to, and they've done it. So here we have the translation. And when the entire Edah of Yisrael, see that, I shouldn't say it that way. That's a bad way to put that. When an entire Edah in Yisrael, let's say it that way. But even if I say it that way, it's going to be heard, it's going to be misinterpreted. Yisrael is not just a place that is on a map somewhere in the Middle East. Yisrael is where God puts his name. And if you have a synagogue where people come together and worship God, that is Yisrael. It's like what the Christians talk about the church. It's not the building, it's the people. And Yisrael is not a building, it's the people. But it's important to put in there that they worship God together and live according to his law. That's where you find Yisrael. So I'm a little kind of worried. My translation is a little too literal here. And I'm worried that somebody's going to read it and read into it that, oh, well, we don't have to live by the Torah in America, see? Because that's not what it's saying. So if someone among the entire Edah somewhere that worships the true God and lives according to his law is in ignorance, and this sin be hidden from the eyes of that assembly, and they have done even, or I should say committed even one sin from among the commandments that they should not do and are guilty. So we only have a half a sentence here. Of the words entire Edah of Yisrael, Onkelos translated almost everything literal, kind of like I just did. Thus, he indicated that all meant all. Saadia saw these words as hyperbolic, which they are, and only applied to only a group, which is correct. Sifra wrote that it was the Sanhedrin. In other words, the 70 elders. However, because you got the seat of Moshe, that's the one. Even though Moshe doesn't sit on it, there's 71. His seat is the one. However, since the Sanhedrin did not exist in this time, it is more likely that he was speaking of the tribal leaders. I don't know if this is Kyle. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but the Kale and Deluge commentary to the Hebrew Bible, that's not the name of it. I'm not going to call it the Old Testament because that's nonsense. But anyway, their commentary says the following. This is still further defined as consisting in the fact that the thing was hid, nalam, from the eyes of the congregation. In other words, sorry, the thing was moving around. I lost my place. That it was a sin which was not known to be such. An act which really violated a commandment of God, though it was not looked upon as sin. Every transgression of a divine command, whether it took place consciously or unconsciously, brought guilt and demanded a sin offering for its expiation. And this was to be presented as soon as the sin was known. The sin offering, which the elders had to offer in the name of the congregation, was to consist of a young ox. It was to be treated like that of the high priest from verses 14 through 23, compared with verses 3 through 12. So we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. Inasmuch as the whole congregation included the priest, or at any rate was on an equality with the priesthood by virtue of its calling in relation to the Lord. I probably should have left that out because it's a little bit way too Christian for me, because this idea, and this may be what's eating at me today. I watched a video yesterday it was about the Messianic Jews. They tried to get me involved in their little group years and years ago when I was still going to church and still trying to discover truth, and all that, because church failed me. I mean, I gave my heart, soul, and strength to God at 9 years old. I did everything I was supposed to do, and life just did not turn out well for me, right? Uh, the day after I gave my whole heart to God, my stepdad started beating me until I passed out the next day. And it just got worse and worse from there. Married the Pentecostal wife, had the Pentecostal kids, got my Pentecostal papers, and as soon as I came home one day and she and the kids were gone, they took my papers from me and kicked me out of the Pentecostal organization and didn't even feel bad for me. So, things didn't go well, right? I didn't take that well because I'm kind of sensitive. So, when I get to the point where I know I can't live with God and I can't live without God, I need some real answers. This just believes got to stop. I can't handle that. God is not so sadistic that he didn't give us answers. I now know that I'm right about that. I didn't know back then for sure, but I was pretty sure that God was not sadistic. And that would be a very sadistic God not to give you answers. They're there. Sometimes we don't want to hear them, and sometimes we have to hear them 12 times before it sinks in. But the answers are there. Life does, in fact, come with an instruction manual, and babies do, in fact, come with an instruction manual. It's in the Torah. Everything we need to know is there. Every question we have has an actual answer, and they are difficult to find because we don't live in a world that follows the Torah anymore. We live in a world that follows whatever imaginations of man can come up with to wipe away the Torah and give us what we want. And that leads to depression and sadness and hopelessness. God's word doesn't do that, but man's does. So, and that's where I had gone. I'd gone the whole Pentecostal route. Keep the hair. You stick your finger right here on the crease of your ear. If the hair is touching the top part of the finger, you're going to hell. You are going to hell. If you give your life to Jesus on Friday night and they tell you, well, we'll come Sunday and get baptized, and you get killed in a car accident on Saturday, you are going to hell. And before the Jews jump in there and say something ugly about the Christians, wow. I mean, let me stay off of that one. I want to stay on the Messianics. The Messianics believe that Heimler, is that the right name? The Dr. Him did the whole thing and said the 8-second prayer and all that stuff. These Pentecostals, who'd I say? Messianics believe that he went to heaven and all the people he murdered went to hell because they didn't have Jesus. What in God's name are you guys thinking? Because here's my problem with the whole thing. First off, there is no such thing as a first century church. The church did not come out of Judaism in any way, shape, or form. None of that's true. It's all utterly and completely made up by the church. And the church comes not from the Bible, it came from philosophers. Philosophers, most of them Jewish, by the way, who were using the New Testament letters to put together a religion. And they did not, there was no such thing as a church until the 1500s. People, that's 600 years ago. 600. The Muslims have been around longer than the Christians have. Now, the Catholics were there before the Muslims, but they didn't exist until after Constantine won his war in the 300s. They didn't even have a name for that organization until the 400s. 400s, almost in the mid 400s. And it was at that point that they established Peter as the first pope to try to force them back to a time that they did not exist. Eusebius wrote 3 times in his introduction to the church history that they were brand new. Brand new. But hey, a small white lie. Wow. The argument that you get the Jew for Jews will tell you is God is eternal. He does not change. His word does not change. His law does not change. Therefore, we must still follow God's law. Nothing has changed. I will give him that. He is absolutely right about that. And those of you who are running around saying that we live by grace and not the law, you are lost. And you're lost and living in the depths and the filth of sin. You are not saved. Saved from what? Tell me you don't have to live by the law? Give me one law that you don't have to follow. You can commit murder now. You can worship idols now. You can be unfaithful to your spouse now. Come on, what law can you not follow and be okay with? And to call it legalism and bondage, first off, you need to look it up. You need to look those words up because you don't know what those words mean. You're misapplying them. God is not the author of legalism. He's not the author of bondage. None of that comes from God. You know how I know? Because the Word of God says that every word that proceeds forth from the mouth of God is perfect, pure, and holy. Perfect, pure, and holy. And to say that God had to change anything, oh, well, he set it up that way for one group of people, he set it up this way, would make him a respecter of persons. And the Word of God says he is not. Not in the slightest little way. So it wasn't supposed to change. Christianity was not supposed to exist, and no, it is not God's job to make it right. But now I'm going to switch over to the Jews because this is our moment of reality. If Yeshua is not the Messiah, then Daniel is a bald-faced liar. He is a false prophet. So is Isaiah, Yeshayahu, so is Yirmiyahu. You go on down the list, they are all bald-faced liars, because every one of them said that the Mashiach would come, and it would happen basically the moment Yeshua was born, and it would end the moment he was hung on a cross. And all of those things that are prophesied about the destruction of the temple came true. Those of you who are sitting around saying it got worse and blah, 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 you don't know what you're talking about. You're spouting off religious nonsense because you don't know the Word of God. Everything that Yeshua did is exactly what the prophet said he would do, and he did it exactly at the moment in time they said he would do it. So if he's not the Mashiach, then more than half of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, is a bald-faced lie. So let's get over these arguments between us and realize that the only religion God ever put on this planet was Judaism. And God does not change. He is not a respecter of person. He did not bring Jesus here to get rid of the Jews. I mean, think about this. The argument is, well, the Jews couldn't keep the Torah. They couldn't do it right, and God got mad at them, so he fired them and kicked them out to the curb, and he made a covenant with the Christians who don't have to live by any law whatsoever, and somehow they're pleasing enough. Come on, what kind of nonsense is this? Somewhere in the middle of all this, we have to find that Yeshua is in fact the Mashiach, whether you like it or not, whether you want to or don't want to believe it or not. God did not lie to his prophets, and his prophets did not lie to us. And you can't find anyone from the right time period who did more walking, talking, and acting like God than Yeshua. You can't find anyone who created more miracles anywhere in the Bible. I mean, most of the men known as miracle workers in the Bible created one miracle in their entire life. You got two of them, one that did 49 and the other that did 50, or some nonsensical thing like that, because they break certain things up into bigger numbers than what they are to make it sound more fun. Yeshua did that many in a single afternoon, and you can't tell me that Shammai and Hillel ever created a single miracle. Not even one time. No, not Pliny the Elder, none of them. Because everyone that wrote about those miracles lived hundreds and hundreds of years after those men died. They never said they did it. None of their students ever said they did it. Just somebody else came along because they didn't want to accept Yeshua because the temple was destroyed. Really? You're breathing, aren't you? Why do you not know that the second temple is the human being? And no, it is not destroyed. Look how hard everybody has tried to destroy the Jew. From that moment on, harder and harder, more and more, till it's millions, 6 million of them in one fell swoop, and they couldn't destroy the temple. Oh, I wish we could all get together and realize that there is only one God. He never got another man's wife pregnant and had a child with her. That's mythology. That's not the Bible. When God came into this world, God came into this world, not his bouncing baby boy. He didn't act like a coward and send his baby boy to die on a cross in his place. Oh my God, I can't believe people believe that. God came. God shed his blood, and he didn't even have to. One drop of blood, one drop of God's blood was enough to save the whole world, enough to reinstate our covenant. That's what saving the world means. One drop. Yet he came and he gave all of it. All of it. And we turn our back on him. Why? Because some philosophers in the 300s and 400s took our letters from our rabbis and perverted them. So both sides are wrong. Both sides are utterly and completely lost. We've got to get to a place where we understand that this law applies to us. So, I don't know. That's probably too heavy for a message like today, right? But the point I want to make about this, going back to this verse, this is any Edah. It said, they say Edah, right? Because they're saying it in plural. Any group that has found that they are doing something wrong. Our group has found that we were doing things wrong over time. And it was my fault. Me not knowing better, me not catching an idiom when I should have, or whatever the deal is. We've made some mistakes. And what do? We beat ourselves up and throw ourselves in front of a moving bus? No, we don't do that. We call ourselves idiots, and yeah, sometimes. But that's not what we're supposed to do. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to make it right. They are wrong about this. Every sin has to have a sacrifice. No, it don't. It does not. Just like Shaul said, not every sin leads to death, people. There are sins that don't lead to death. For instance, we're right in the middle of, right in the beginning, actually, of Matzot, right? Because Pesach was last Wednesday night. And then, so now we're eating our matzah every day. Well, every once in a while, one of us will find that there's some leaven still in our house. Oh, we didn't see that. We missed that. We didn't know that had leaven in it. Whatever the thing is. And do we have to sacrifice this bull? No. No. God laid it out. You can't talk to anybody in your congregation until Matzot is over. That's the sum total of the price that's to be paid for that. So this one is, you've got a negative law. You were told not to do this, and you did it anyway. And nobody caught it. Everybody's thinking, oh, this is okay, everything's all right. And then somebody says, but wait, doesn't it say somewhere we're not supposed to? And everyone's like, oh my God. Yeah, well, maybe those are what you have to do that to, but you still have to be careful, because if the punishment, let's say you eat matzot, you were told not to, right? Do you have to have a cow because of this? No, this is the heavy duty stuff. This is the straight up, I don't even, can't think of a serious example. I know you didn't send your rabbi a big whopping check for it. Just kidding. No, I mean, this is going to be a serious sin here. This is something that, and mainly everybody's involved in it. Everybody's doing this thing they're not supposed to do, and then it comes to their light. It wouldn't hurt if we all found out we were supposed to be eating matzah and we weren't doing it. Well, but that's not we weren't told not to do it. I got to get off on the right one. What are we told not to do? We're told not to worship idols. But let's say we all suddenly realized we were worshiping an idol because everybody in the congregation is worshiping the Dallas Cowboys or something. And everybody's just, oh, we can't miss the Dallas Cowboys. They play on a Saturday. We're missing Shabbat because we're all together watching the Dallas Cowboys, or we're out fishing on Shabbat saying that we can worship God anywhere. I don't know. So we're doing something that we're not supposed to do. That, first off, you got to make that distinction, because it does say that. If we take it over to where it's both sides, I think we're going a little too far. Some days I don't, but most days I think that's too far. Anyway, if you realize that we're all in sin, let me know, and we'll decide if that needs a cow, or we just all need to not talk to each other for a little while. Oh wow, am I really that close? No, I got to go by this clock. Well, I don't have any time for that anyway. Verse 14 is really big. So I guess I'm going to have to cut it off here. Running out of time anyway. Didn't mean to be so heavy-handed today, but hope you still love me when it's all over with. I'm just trying to tell you guys the truth. Anyway, shalom v'shalom, y'all.
Beyish meracha. Ya'er Yahweh panai v'lecha vihunecha. Yisah lecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And in English, may Yahweh cause you to lie down so that you may watch and caress you. May he prepare you for what is ahead. May he watch over you. May he keep you from harm. May he cause goodness to grow in you and take away the bad. May he arrange your life and cause you to flourish. May he cheer you up and gladden your heart. May he cause his light to shine through you. May he show you tenderness, favor, and love in his presence. May he show you kindness and be delicate towards you. May he show you his generosity, mercy, compassion, and desire for you as it comes forth from the depths of his soul. May he lift you out of your pit and deliver you from the things that hold you prisoner. May he draw you to his chest and cast his eyes on yours. May he show you his love and desire for you as he cradles you in his arms. May he bear your punishment and pardon you of your sin. May he take you for his bride. May he establish a foundation in you. May he place his name on your heart and mind and make your body his temple. May you be his treasure. May you always be on his mind. May he draw you near and comfort you when you are afraid. May he assure you there is nothing to fear because he is with you. May you and all that concerns you be at peace because he is your friend. Amen.